When we talk about emotional strength in older women, most people imagine toughness on the surface, but what truly defines strength is often hidden beneath the calm, steady way they move through life. And today, I want to show you the subtle signs they never reveal, the ones that keep their dignity sharp and their peace protected. They hide how deeply they feel things because they have learned over decades of experiences, both tender and painful, that emotions are powerful forces that must be handled with intention rather than exposure. An emotionally strong older woman has walked through enough storms to know that not every feeling deserves an audience, and not every reaction needs to be witnessed. She understands that vulnerability is not weakness, but she also knows that sharing every emotion with everyone can invite misunderstanding, judgment, or unnecessary intrusion. So she carries her emotions inward, not because she is numb or indifferent, but because she feels everything with a depth that would overwhelm someone who hasn't lived her life. She has felt heartbreak that reshaped her, joy that renewed her, grief that stayed with her longer than she expected, and love that she still treasures in silence. These emotions move through her quietly, and she allows them to teach her without letting them dictate her every move. She knows how to process emotions without performing them. When she is hurt, she doesn't broadcast it. She takes her time to understand what triggered her and what boundaries need to be strengthened. When something touches her deeply, she may smile softly instead of expressing the flood of gratitude she feels. When she is disappointed, she absorbs it with grace because she has learned that reacting too quickly often complicates situations rather than clarifying them. This internal processing is not about shutting down. It is about preserving her emotional energy for what truly matters. She has mastered the art of listening to her feelings privately, observing them like waves coming and going, knowing which ones deserve her attention and which ones simply need space to pass. The depth of her emotions is not something she hides because she is ashamed of it, but because she understands how rare it is to feel things so intensely and still maintain composure. She knows that some emotions are sacred and personal, and sharing them with the wrong people can distort their meaning. She has learned over the years that people don't always respond with the same depth or care she puts into her feelings, so she protects herself by choosing moments of expression with intentional precision. She speaks when necessary, but she also knows when silence gives her more strength. This ability to hold her emotions without letting them overflow is a sign of maturity, resilience, and emotional intelligence. She feels empathy deeply, often sensing the emotions of others before they speak, but she doesn't overwhelm them with it. She offers understanding with subtle gestures, a soft tone, a steady presence. She feels compassion that runs deeper than words, shaped by her own experiences of being misunderstood or underestimated. She feels nostalgia in a way that brings warmth and ache at the same time, remembering people she has loved, moments that shaped her, and chapters she never expected to close. She feels loss profoundly, not because she dwells on the past, but because she honors what once mattered to her. She feels dreams still alive within her, even if she keeps them tucked away where no one can dismiss or diminish them. The depth of her emotions is part of her strength, not something she tries to erase. She hides it because she knows that showing everything would invite noise into her peace, and peace is something she has earned through years of hard decisions and quiet endurance. She chooses inner calm over outward reaction because her emotions are not tools for attention. They are reminders of her humanity, her growth, and her capacity to love, endure, and rise again. They hide the battles they fight in silence because they have learned that strength is often built in the quiet moments when no one is watching, and not every struggle needs to be spoken aloud to be real. An emotionally strong older woman has carried responsibilities, disappointments, heartbreaks, and unexpected turns in life that would have broken a weaker spirit, yet she continues to move forward without demanding sympathy or recognition. She doesn't broadcast her hardship because she understands that pain does not always need an audience and that sharing every struggle can sometimes attract judgment, pity, or unwanted interference. She knows that people can misunderstand the weight she carries or minimize it, so she chooses to deal with her battles privately, trusting herself to navigate the difficult moments with resilience born from years of experience. This silence is not isolation, but a chosen space where she can process, reflect, and rise without noise clouding her clarity. She handles challenges with a steady, measured approach, taking one step at a time even when the path feels uncertain. When she is overwhelmed, she doesn't crumble outwardly. She pauses, breathes, and gathers her strength quietly. She might face financial pressure, family issues, health concerns, or emotional wounds from the past, but she moves through them with a quiet endurance that others rarely see. She knows how to sit with difficulty without letting it define her. She has learned how to self-soothe, how to pray or meditate, how to journal her thoughts, or simply sit in silence until the storm within her begins to calm. She trusts her inner guidance more than the opinions of others, knowing that the answers she needs often come from within, not from outside validation. Her battles become her teachers, shaping her wisdom, sharpening her intuition, and deepening her understanding of herself. She also fights battles the world never considers, battles of identity, aging, self-worth, and evolving relationships. She may struggle with letting go of people who drift away or with accepting that certain chapters of her life have ended, but she processes these transitions quietly, honoring her emotions without letting them spill into chaos. She understands the value of protecting her dignity even when she is hurting. She knows the difference between vulnerability and exposure, and she chooses vulnerability in private where it can heal rather than harm. She doesn't need to be loud about her pain because she has cultivated an inner strength capable of holding it until it softens. Her silence is not a sign of suppression, but of wisdom. She reveals only what aligns with her peace and keeps the rest tucked away where she can face it without added pressure. Sometimes her battles are emotional ones, the kind that echo from memories or unresolved stories she carries inside her. She may still be healing from losses she never fully spoke about, or disappointments she learned to accept quietly because life demanded resilience. Other times the battles are physical or mental, ones she manages with discipline, routine, and acceptance rather than complaints. She pushes through her days not because they are easy, but because she refuses to be defined by what weighs her down. She navigates life with a balance of courage and caution, knowing when to fight, when to surrender, and when to simply endure until the moment passes. What she hides is not weakness, but strength, the kind of strength that doesn't need applause or acknowledgement. She battles with grace, with patience, and with the knowledge that she has survived every challenge she has faced so far. Her silence allows her to stay grounded, focused, and emotionally steady, and it protects her from unnecessary noise that could cloud her judgment or shake her confidence. She chooses to fight her battles privately because she knows that true strength grows in stillness, in self-trust, and in the quiet determination to keep going even when no one knows what she is carrying. They hide how often they choose restraint over reaction because they understand that emotional control is one of the strongest forms of power a person can possess, especially as the years teach them that not every situation deserves their energy or their voice. An emotionally strong older woman has learned through countless experiences that reacting quickly, loudly, or impulsively rarely leads to clarity or peace. She has seen how words spoken in anger can fracture relationships, how heated responses can escalate unnecessary conflict, and how emotional outbursts can drain her spirit far more than silence ever will. So she chooses restraint, not because she is passive or afraid, but because she knows the value of protecting her inner peace. She listens more than she speaks, observes more than she interrupts, and reflects more than she reacts. She knows she cannot control others, but she can always control how she responds, and that wisdom shapes the calm presence she carries with her everywhere she goes. Her restraint is not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it. There are moments when she feels the urge to defend herself, to correct someone, or to call out behavior that is hurtful, but she takes a breath and asks herself if the moment is worth her energy. She has learned that some conversations are better handled later after emotions settle, while others are better left unspoken altogether. She recognizes that silence can speak louder than anger, and walking away can be more powerful than arguing. Her restraint becomes a quiet shield, allowing her to move through difficult moments with dignity rather than drama. She has outgrown the need to be right all the time and replaced it with the desire to stay grounded, centered, and true to herself. She chooses restraint in relationships too. She does not respond to every misunderstanding with confrontation. Instead, she gives space, considers perspectives, and allows time to reveal what is real and what is simply emotion in the moment. She doesn't force apologies, explanations, or validation from others because she knows that genuine clarity comes naturally when she stays patient. She does not chase after people who pull away and does not argue with those who refuse to listen. Her restraint protects her self-respect, guiding her to step back from chaos rather than get tangled in it. This quiet discipline keeps her heart steady and her boundaries firm, showing others that she is not easily shaken or manipulated. Her restraint also appears in the way she handles disappointment or frustration. Instead of reacting with bitterness, she reflects on what the moment is teaching her. Instead of complaining loudly about what went wrong, she looks for solutions or simply accepts what she cannot change. She has lived long enough to understand that reacting emotionally to every inconvenience only amplifies stress. By choosing restraint, she maintains control over her mood, her choices, and her peace. She knows that her energy is precious, and she spends it with intention rather than impulse. Even in moments of deep hurt, she chooses calm over chaos. She may cry in private, write her feelings in a journal, whisper a prayer, or sit quietly with her thoughts. But she does not lash out, retaliate, or let her pain dictate her behavior. She knows the power of composure, especially when life tests her. She knows that her calm does not mean she is unaffected. It means she is wise enough to understand that reacting emotionally rarely changes the situation, but always affects her peace. Her restraint is a strength that others may mistake for indifference, but in truth, it is the product of emotional maturity, self-respect, and a deep understanding of what truly matters. They hide the loneliness that sometimes comes with wisdom because they have learned that solitude is not something to fear, but something to manage with grace, even though the world often misunderstands what it feels like to grow older and grow quieter at the same time. An emotionally strong older woman carries a kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being unloved, but from seeing life differently than she once did. She has outgrown many relationships, stepped away from unhealthy circles, and watched people drift in and out of her life as seasons changed. She has learned that not everyone is meant to stay forever, and this awareness brings both peace and a subtle ache. She doesn't talk about it because loneliness is deeply personal, and she knows that sharing it doesn't always bring comfort. Instead, she chooses to hold it privately, honoring the truth of how life evolves while reminding herself that being alone does not mean she is empty. She feels loneliness in moments that others can't see. She may sit in a quiet room, remembering old friends she no longer speaks to or loved ones who have passed, and she feels a softness inside her that no amount of noise could ever fill. She has memories that warm her and memories that haunt her, but she carries them all with quiet dignity. She doesn't express this loneliness because she doesn't want pity or questions she isn't ready to answer. Instead, she channels the silence into strength, teaching herself how to find comfort in her own presence. She has mastered the art of being alone without being lonely, even though the feeling still visits her from time to time in waves that are invisible to others. Her loneliness isn't from lack of people, but from lack of deep connection, the kind that grows harder to find as one becomes wiser, more discerning, and more self-aware. She doesn't tolerate shallow conversations or relationships that drain her energy. She wants depth, sincerity, and emotional truth, and when she doesn't find them, she chooses solitude instead of forcing connections that don't feel real. She knows the difference between being with people and being understood by them, and she refuses to settle for less than the latter. This choice often sets her apart, making her appear distant or selective, but in reality, she is simply protecting her heart from spaces where she cannot be fully herself. There are times when her loneliness comes from her own strength. She has grown so independent, so emotionally capable, that people assume she doesn't need comfort, companionship, or support. They forget she is human, that she feels deeply, that she longs for connection just like anyone else, even though she has learned not to depend on it. She hides this longing because she doesn't want to appear needy or weak, and because she has lived long enough to know that not everyone knows how to love someone with her depth. So she keeps her feelings tucked behind her calm exterior, choosing to appear steady even when her heart quietly aches for someone who truly understands her. Yet her loneliness also teaches her resilience. It pushes her to nurture herself, to create a life she can enjoy even in silence, to build routines that bring her peace, and to care for her emotional well-being without relying on others. She finds beauty in small rituals, comfort in her own company, and strength in knowing that she can stand alone when she needs to. She hides the loneliness not because she wants to pretend it doesn't exist, but because she understands that it is part of her journey, a companion that shaped her wisdom, deepened her compassion, and refined her sense of self. They hide the strength it takes to walk away from what doesn't honor them because they have learned through life, loss, and growth that letting go is often the most courageous choice a person can make. An emotionally strong older woman has walked through enough chapters to know that staying in the wrong place can cost her peace, dignity, and self-worth. She understands that not every relationship, friendship, opportunity, or familiar comfort is meant to remain forever. Yet even with this knowledge, the act of walking away is never easy. It requires deep self-awareness, painful honesty, and a commitment to valuing herself above what the world expects from her. She chooses to keep this strength private because explaining why she leaves often leads to misunderstanding, criticism, or attempts to pull her back into situations she has already outgrown. So she walks away quietly, trusting her intuition more than the noise around her. She knows how to recognize when something no longer aligns with her inner peace. She pays attention to the subtle shifts, the way a conversation leaves her drained, the way someone's actions stop matching their words, the way an environment begins to feel heavy instead of supportive. Instead of forcing things to work, she reflects on what they are teaching her. She has learned over time that growth often requires shedding old layers, and that loyalty to herself matters more than loyalty to anything that hurts her spirit. Even when her heart feels attached, she listens to the quiet whisper inside her that says she deserves better. This decision is not coldness, it is clarity. It is the knowledge that holding on to the wrong things only delays what is meant for her. Walking away demands strength because it requires facing the unknown. She may leave behind people she once loved deeply, habits that provided comfort, or roles she thought she would have forever. She steps into uncertainty with a steady heart because she remembers the times she stayed too long in places that stole her joy. She hides the fear and sadness that accompany this choice, presenting a calm exterior even when her emotions swirl beneath the surface. She understands that healing often begins the moment she chooses herself, but healing is still a process, and she allows herself to feel everything privately without performing her struggle for others. She also walks away from arguments that go nowhere, from disrespect disguised as jokes, from manipulation masked as love, and from expectations that limit her growth. She does not waste her breath trying to change people who do not want to change. She releases situations that once mattered but now